Be Smart is a program developed by Everytown for Gun Safety Support Fund to bring together parents and all adults concerned about kids, guns, and safety. I want to thank you so much for watching this presentation today. My name is Stephanie. I am a resident of Salem, Oregon. I am a mom, a PE teacher, and a gun owner. And in fact, I was raised in a home with unsecured firearms, and I didn't know it until I found a firearm myself when I was a teenager. Let's take a minute to watch this short video where Aaron Donald of the LA Rams will introduce you to our Be Smart campaign. I'm grateful to be here with you today to talk about the life-saving message of secure gun storage. Before we begin, let's agree on a few things that are important to the Be Smart message. Number one, we all want kids to grow up happy and healthy. Number two, we each have the right to make responsible decisions about how to protect our homes, families, and communities, including whether or not to have a gun in our home. Number three, if we can prevent even one child gun death or injury, it's our responsibility to do so. I'm not here to talk about laws or policies, so let's set those aside. Be Smart is a program to bring together all adults, gun owners, and non-gun owners concerned about kids, guns, and safety. Before we begin, I'll be talking about stories of gun violence and suicide, and we know living through these experiences is devastating and hearing about them can be difficult. It's a heartbreaking fact that in the US, firearms are the leading cause of death for children. This is a public health crisis. More than 1,800 children under the age of 18 are killed with guns every year, an average of 5 children every day. When children are killed with guns, the majority of those deaths, 54%, are homicides. That's 1,000 children per year. Additionally, nearly 700 children die by firearm suicide each year, and 100 are unintentionally shot and killed. I'm here today to talk about how we can prevent tragedies like that. A shocking 4.6 million children in the US live in a household with at least one loaded, unlocked gun. While school shootings and mass shootings typically make national headlines, almost all child unintentional shooting deaths occur in the home. And the Secret Service found that 3/4 of school shooters acquired their firearm from the home of a parent or close relative. I know this is an emotional issue, and we may come from different walks of life. Many of you may be parents, some of you may be gun owners, and some of you may not be. Some of you may have had a personal experience with guns, and some of you may have even been impacted by gun violence. We believe that most gun owners want to be responsible gun owners. So I am here today to talk about what all of us, gun owners and non-gun owners alike, can do to make sure children and teens do not have unsupervised access to guns. On this slide, you'll see just a few headlines from across the country, although we know there are many incidents that go unreported. Behind each headline are real lives that have been impacted. Most of you will remember the news in December of 2021 about a 15-year-old Oxford High School student in Michigan who shot and killed 4 students and wounded several others. He was armed with a handgun recently purchased by his father. In July of this year, a 3-year-old boy was shot after being left alone in a car with a gun in Pennsylvania. The lower left article talks about an incident at a South Carolina elementary school in May of this year. A loaded handgun was found in the backpack of a 7-year-old student. Last, in the bottom right corner, is a story about 2 teenage boys hospitalized in August after being shot in what investigators believe to be a murder-suicide attempt in Texas. All 4 of these stories show the consequences of when young people get their hands on unsecured guns. No story is quite the same, but all are tragic and all are preventable. I want to take a few minutes to talk specifically about what the consequences of unsecured guns looks like in Oregon. The first article talks about a 3-year-old boy from Aloha who finds an unsecured gun in his parents' nightstand and shoots himself in the head. Upper right is an article that talks about an injury that occurs in a Safeway bathroom in Bend when a firearm is discharged. Bottom left article speaks about gun suicide in Oregon. 81% of Oregon's gun deaths were suicide, 23 percentage points higher than the national average. The last article in the bottom right is about keeping schools in Oregon's rural communities safe following the Uvalde shooting this past May in Texas. The presenters went over ways to connect students with mental health resources, whether school districts should have universal language for lockdowns, and Safe Oregon, an app that allows students to report safety concerns anonymously. All 4 of these stories show the consequences of unsecured guns. All are preventable. What can we do right now? Gun owners and non-gun owners can all take action in their homes and their communities to keep our kids safe. Together, we can learn to be smart. Let's start with S. Secure your guns in homes and vehicles. 13 million households with children contain at least 1 gun, and the majority of children in gun-owning households actually know where the gun is stored. So what do I mean by securing guns? A gun should always be stored securely, which means they are inaccessible to kids and make sure children are never in the presence of an unsecured gun. Remember, hiding a gun is not securing a gun. We know that you may have specific questions about what secure storage looks like in practice. So here are some examples. We also have a handout that can be downloaded at besmartforkids.org/resources. Contrary to popular belief, locking up guns does not prevent owners from readily accessing their guns. There is a common myth that storage devices negate the self-defense purpose of owning a gun by putting time-consuming barriers between the gun owner and their means of defense. The reality is that there are many affordable options for a secure gun storage that provides owners with access to guns in a matter of seconds, while still preventing access by children and people at increased risk of harming themselves or others. Further, it is possible that unsecured guns may actually increase the likelihood of crime and violence through an increased risk of gun theft. Locking up guns will help to reduce the risk of firearm suicide, unintentional firearm injury, and also help to prevent firearm theft. Did you know that at least 2 guns are stolen every 15 minutes? It's important to also remember to lock up any guns in cars too. More than half of stolen guns are taken from cars. Just putting a gun under a seat or in the glove compartment wouldn't be considered secure storage. There are car gun lock boxes available for purchase at most retail and sporting goods stores. Here are 3 additional gun locks for your review: a gun case, a trigger lock, and a cable lock at varying price points. M, model responsible behavior. Every law-abiding adult has the right to decide whether or not to have a gun in the home, but you can't rely on curious kids not to find a gun. Kids know where their parents store their guns, and more than 1/3 reported handling their parents' guns, many doing so without the knowledge of their parents. Nearly 1/4 of parents did not know that their children had handled the gun in their house. It is always an adult's responsibility to prevent unauthorized access to guns, not a curious child's responsibility to avoid guns. Talk to your kids about gun safety, but remember, that's a precaution, not a guarantee. One study found that young children who go through a week-long gun safety training are just as likely as children with no training to approach or play with a handgun when they find one. Modeling responsible behavior means that smart adults make sure that kids don't have the opportunity to access guns. That said, you can't control the environment that your child is in all the time. So you should teach them not to touch a gun if they come across one, real or pretend, and give them the tools to get out of a dangerous situation and to alert an adult. As an adult, it is your responsibility to do everything you can to prevent them from getting in a dangerous situation to begin with. We also have a handout on best practices for talking to children and teens about guns on our website. As I have mentioned, there are approximately 4.6 million US children living in a household with at least one loaded, unlocked gun. That's why you need to ask about firearms in other homes your child visits, the A in SMART. For the parents and caretakers here, there are many things you might think about before allowing your child to go to a friend's or another home. We have heard many people comment on this subject, giving potential ideas such as allergies or pets in the home, pools or trampolines on the property, car seats for rides, who will be home for play dates or teen events, TV and screen time access, electronics or video games, and access to alcohol. Asking about guns in the home should be as natural as asking about any other safety issue. If it seems awkward at first, try making it part of your general safety conversation. You might try asking via email or text if you're uncomfortable at first. Let's talk about recognizing the role of guns in suicide, the R. Access to a gun can mean the difference between life and death. As our children get older, you may need to consider taking another look at your storage methods. If you've been using a simple cable lock, you may want to think about getting a gun safe. We all know how curious children can be, so as they get older and more resourceful, you will need to act accordingly. Also, if you know your loved one is in distress, you might want to consider temporarily removing a gun from your home. Why would you want to do that? It's important to consider that firearm suicide is uniquely lethal. 90% of suicide attempts using a gun end in death, and that half of suicides in the US are gun suicides, a much higher fatality rate than any other means of self-harm. 70% of people who survive a suicide attempt will never attempt suicide again. 41% of child suicides involve a gun. So if you consider temporarily removing a gun from your home, how can you do that? Where can you bring it? Local law enforcement may be willing to temporarily store your guns. Some licensed gun dealers or gun ranges may be willing to temporarily store your guns. Or you could temporarily store your guns in the home of a friend or family member. To manage risk for that friend or family member, you should lock any guns that you transfer and not provide the key or code. Depending on the law in your state, the person agreeing to store your guns may first need to get a background check at a gun dealer or through law enforcement. The National Youth Survey conducted by the CDC showed that 20% of high school students had seriously considered attempting suicide within the last year. One study showed that 41% of adolescents in gun-owning households report having quote unquote easy access to the guns in their home. As we discussed earlier, research shows that secure firearm storage is associated with a decreased risk of child firearm suicide. Here are some important resources to write down or take a picture of in case you or someone you care about needs help. Some signs to look out for when concerned that a loved one may be suicidal: prolonged sadness and depression, changes in mood or behavior, hopelessness, sleeping too much or too little, withdrawing or isolation, aggression or agitation, increased alcohol or drug use, talking about killing themselves. We have handout materials with more information about how to get help if you do recognize these and other warning signs, and it includes the suicide prevention hotline. Additionally, if you are a survivor of gun violence, we can connect you to the Everytown Survivor Network. It is a nationwide community of survivors working together to end gun violence. The Survivor Network connects survivors to each other, amplifies the power of survivor voices, offers trauma-informed programs, provides information on direct services, and supports survivors who choose to become advocates. All of the services are free. Tell, that is the power of being smart. So how will you commit to be smart today? Sharing the Be Smart message, the way we will save lives, is by spreading awareness. So I'd love for you to take just a few moments and think about who you're going to tell to be smart today. Is there anyone that would like to share who we're going to be smart with today? You can also text SMART to 64433. In our communities, we often work with school districts to help spread the message about secure storage or firearms. On this slide is an example of Lake Oswego School District hosting a district-wide safety symposium with the help of our volunteers, Lake Oswego Police Department, and the Gun Owners for Responsible Ownership. Another community partner we often work with is the Office of Violence Prevention. We have partnered with them to present our Be Smart message at a variety of public meetings and tabling events to raise awareness that gun violence is preventable and it needs to be seen as a public health crisis. Be Smart partnered with Dornbecker Children's Hospital in November 2021 on National Injury Prevention Day with a social media campaign about secure gun storage. This partnership led to a new partnership with Multnomah County to train medical professionals at the Health Birth Initiative. The focus was on high-risk families, educating them about home safety, including our Be Smart campaign and offering free gun locks donated by gun owners for responsible ownership. We frequently give state virtual presentations. For example, a discussion on suicide prevention awareness is offered to the public every September for Suicide Prevention Awareness Month in a statewide call. Speakers included a representative from Lines of Life, a crisis intervention organization, speaking about the new 988 Lifeline, and gun violence survivors shared their personal stories. Going through the Be Smart acronym again, the S is for secure all guns in your home and vehicles. M is model responsible behavior. A, ask about unsecured guns in other homes. R, recognize the role of guns in suicide. T, tell your peers to be smart. This is the contact information for our Oregon State Be Smart lead, Debbie Lindgren. You can reach her at this email, oregon@momschapterleaders.org. You can also text SMART to 64433 to learn more about the Be Smart program. Thank you so much for spending your time here today. Feel free to speak with me if you have any other questions about the presentation or about gun safety in general.